Imagine this. You spent $200 on a dwarf apple tree because you wanted fresh fruit from your small yard or patio. You waited 3 years, 3 entire years watching it grow, pruning it carefully, protecting it from pests. And finally, in year 4, you got your first harvest. 12 apples. 12. After 4 years of waiting and hundreds of dollars invested. You do the math and realize you paid about $15 per apple when you could have just bought organic ones at the farmer's market. Now picture this instead. It's June, just 2 years after planting, and you're picking your third quart of blueberries this week from a bush that cost you $20. By the end of summer, that single bush has given you 15 pounds of berries worth over $100 at grocery store prices. It's growing in a container on your patio. It took zero special skills, and next year, it'll produce even more. Same space as that apple tree, a fraction of the cost, and you're already eating fruit instead of still waiting. That's exactly what I'm revealing today. I'm going to show you 5 fruit-producing bushes that outperform fruit trees in every way that matters for small space gardeners: faster harvests, higher yields per square foot, lower cost, and most importantly, they thrive in containers on balconies and patios. If you've been told you need a big yard and years of patience to grow your own fruit, this video is going to change everything. These bushes start producing in year 1 or 2 instead of year 3 to 5. They produce 10 to 20 pounds of fruit per plant instead of a handful. And every single one grows perfectly in a container. I'm even going to show you one bush that produces 2 separate harvests per year. From a single plant, most fruit trees can't even dream of that kind of production. If you want fresh fruit from your balcony or patio without waiting half a decade, hit subscribe right now so you don't miss our weekly small space growing guides. Let's get into it. Bush 1: blueberries. This is the most underestimated fruit-producing plant for small spaces, and it absolutely dominates fruit trees in productivity per square foot. Here's what most people don't realize. One mature blueberry bush in a container produces 5–10 pounds of fruit per year once established. A dwarf apple tree in the same size space produces maybe 20–30 apples, which is about 8–10 pounds. The blueberry starts producing in year 2. The apple tree, year 4 or 5. The blueberry costs $20.30. The dwarf apple, $40.80 or more. Simple specs. One blueberry bush needs a 15–20 gallon container. Plant it this spring, you'll get a handful of berries in year 1, 3–5 pounds in year 2, and 8–10 pounds per year once mature in year 3. These bushes produce for 20+ years with minimal care. What makes blueberries special? They're self-pollinating. So you only need one plant, though 2 increases yields. They're compact 3–4 feet tall for most varieties. They have almost zero pest problems compared to fruit trees that battle aphids and diseases. And the berries ripen over 4–6 weeks, giving you continuous harvests instead of one overwhelming crop. Simple care. Blueberries need acidic soil use ericaceous potting mix or regular potting soil mixed with peat moss. Water consistently, keep soil moist but not waterlogged. Feed with acid fertilizer twice a year. Prune out old wood every few years. Blueberries are incredibly forgiving. They tolerate partial shade, they handle cold winters beautifully, and they rarely have disease issues. Hard to kill, easy to harvest. If you want pounds of fresh fruit without the hassle of fruit trees, blueberries should be at the top of your list. Bush 2: raspberries. This is the bush that proves you can have gourmet quality fruit from a container, and it produces faster than almost any tree you can plant. Most people think raspberries need a huge patch and complicated trellis systems. Meanwhile, container growers are getting 5–8 pounds of berries per plant from a single 15-gallon pot with a simple tomato cage for support. And here's the kicker: ever-bearing varieties give you 2 harvests per year, spring and fall, from the same plant. Quick question: have you ever tried growing fruit in containers? Or would this be your first time? Drop a comment and let me know. I'd love to hear if you're already growing berries or if this is opening your eyes to new possibilities. Simple specs. One raspberry plant needs a 15-20-gallon container and a support cage. First harvest comes in year 1 for most varieties. Year 2 onwards, expect 5-8 pounds per plant. Ever-bearing varieties like Heritage produce in June and again in September. Why raspberries beat trees? They start producing immediately instead of making you wait years. They produce twice per year with ever-bearing varieties. And fresh raspberries cost $6.08 per pound at stores, so an 8-pound harvest is worth $50.65. Your $15 plant pays for itself in year 2 and keeps producing for 10-15 years. Simple care. Plant in well-draining potting soil. Install a cage or trellis for support. Water consistently during fruiting. After harvest, cut down canes that fruited and let new canes grow for next year's crop. Feed with balanced fertilizer in early spring. Raspberries are resilient. They handle cold beautifully, tolerate some shade, and the only real challenge is keeping them watered during hot summer berry production. If you want expensive gourmet fruit that you can actually afford to eat regularly, raspberries are your answer. Bush 3 currants. This is the most productive fruit bush nobody talks about, and it absolutely crushes fruit trees in yield per square foot. Here's what blows people's minds. One mature currant bush produces 8-12 pounds of fruit per year from a 10-15-gallon container. That's more fruit than most dwarf fruit trees, in less space, with a fraction of the maintenance, and you get your first harvest in year 1 or 2 instead of waiting 3-5 years. Simple specs, red, white, or black currants all grow the same way. One bush in a 10-15-gallon container produces fruit in year 1 or 2. Mature production of 8-12 pounds starts in year 3. These bushes live and produce for 15-20 years. They're 3-4 feet tall and wide, perfect for small spaces. What makes currants exceptional? They're shade-tolerant. They actually prefer partial shade in hot climates, making them perfect for north-facing balconies where most fruit fails. They have 0 pest problems. 0. No spraying, no pest control, nothing. And they're self-pollinating, so one plant is enough. Simple care. Plant in well-draining potting soil, water consistently, feed with balanced fertilizer in spring. Prune out wood older than 3 years to encourage new productive growth. Currants are bulletproof. They tolerate cold, heat, shade, neglect. They produce reliably every single year without drama. The only downside is most Americans haven't discovered them yet, so they seem exotic. If you want massive fruit harvests from the shadiest spot on your balcony where nothing else grows, currants are your secret weapon. Bush 4 gooseberries. This is the forgotten fruit that produces like crazy, tolerates conditions that kill fruit trees, and gives you pie-worthy harvests from a single container. Most people have never even tasted a gooseberry. Meanwhile, European gardeners have been growing them for centuries because they're ridiculously productive and basically indestructible. One bush produces 6-10 pounds of tart, delicious berries perfect for pies and jams. Simple specs. One gooseberry bush in a 10-15-gallon container produces fruit starting in year 2. Expect 6-10 pounds per year once established in year 3. The bushes stay compact, 3-4 feet tall, and produce for 15-20 years. Why gooseberries dominate? They tolerate partial shade, poor soil, cold, heat, drought, basically everything that stresses fruit trees. They have thorns that deter pests naturally. And while the berries are too tart to eat fresh for most people, they make incredible pies and jams that cost $8.12 per jar if you bought them at specialty stores. Simple care. Plant in well-draining soil, water when the top few inches dry out, feed with balanced fertilizer in spring, prune in late winter to remove old wood. Harvest berries when they're full-sized and slightly soft. Gooseberries are low-maintenance champions. They don't need perfect conditions, they just produce year after year. The thorns make harvesting a bit prickly, but that's the only challenge. If you want fruit production in difficult conditions where trees would struggle, gooseberries prove small spaces can still be productive. Bush 5 strawberries. This is the crop that seems too obvious, but most people grow it wrong, and when you grow it right, it outproduces everything else on this list per square foot. Here's what most people do. They plant June-bearing strawberries, get one harvest in June, and that's it. Smart growers plant ever-bearing or day-neutral varieties and harvest fresh strawberries from June through October, 5 months of production from the same space. Simple specs: 15-20 ever-bearing strawberry plants in a large container or hanging basket. First harvest in year 1, you'll pick berries the same year you plant. Expect 1-2 pounds per plant over the season, so 20-30 pounds total from a 3x3 foot space. Replace plants every 3-4 years. Why ever-bearing varieties dominate? They produce multiple flushes of fruit throughout the growing season instead of one harvest. They start producing in the planting year, and strawberries cost $4.08 per pound at stores, so even a modest harvest of 25 pounds is worth $100, $150. Simple care. Plant in well-draining potting mix. Water consistently. Strawberries need moisture when fruiting. Feed with balanced fertilizer monthly during growing season. Remove runners to focus energy on fruit production. Strawberries are space-efficient champions. You can grow 15 plants in a hanging basket, a vertical tower, or a shallow, wide container. They're perfect for balconies where ground space is limited, but you can use vertical space. If you want the most fruit production from the absolute smallest footprint, ever-bearing strawberries are unbeatable. Now here's the bonus strategy that professional growers use to maximize yields. It's called stacking your harvest seasons, and it means you're picking fresh fruit from May through October instead of just a few weeks. Here's how it works. Plant strawberries for June through October. Include raspberries for June and September. Add blueberries for July and August. Throw in currants in July. When you combine these bushes strategically, you create a continuous fruit production system where something is always ripening. This is how small space growers feed families fresh fruit for months instead of buying it at the store. You're not relying on one big harvest. You're harvesting small amounts of different fruits continuously, which is actually more practical for eating fresh. One more secret: these bushes work together. Blueberries and strawberries both like acidic soil, so you can grow them in adjacent containers with the same soil mix. Raspberries and currants tolerate partial shade, so they can go in less than ideal spots. You're building a system, not just growing random plants. Here's your homework, and this is important. Pick 2 bushes from this list based on your climate and space. If you're in a cold climate, start with raspberries and blueberries. If you're in a mild climate, blueberries and strawberries are your foundation. Order them this week and get them planted this spring. You don't need a farm to grow meaningful amounts of fruit. You don't need years of waiting. You just need the right plants in the right containers with basic, consistent care. Now that you know which fruit bushes to plant, your success depends entirely on one thing: the container setup and soil you use. These bushes can produce for 20+ years if you set them up correctly from day one, or they can struggle if you use the wrong container or soil mix. Click this video right here where I show you my exact container fruit setup, the pot sizes, the soil recipe, and the one drainage trick that prevents root rot. Let's make sure your fruit bushes thrive for decades and produce those massive harvests we just talked about.